Welcome to book club. I like books, if you couldn't tell. And today I'm talking to you about my book club of the month of right now it's July, but you're going to be seeing this in August. My choice for book club is Nightwing. All right, now listen, just hear me out. Listen. Okay, I know. Okay, they're comics. Okay, but please, this is the love of my life. Okay, like I love him so much. I love him so much. I have one love. I have one. And it's this man. Okay, and I am so disappointed every single day that I wake up and he's not real. But this is my man. This is my true man. Tell everybody in my life, tell my husband, that this is actually my husband. He is my husband. This is my husband. How was I supposed to say no to this? Hmm? Do you see this? How was I supposed to say no? How are you supposed to say no to a man in a billowy white shirt? How do you say no to a Romani man in a billowy white shirt who represents all of hope in a desolate land? Okay, maybe it's not desolate, but it is corrupt. We could use a little bit of hope sometimes, it's nice. Um, Let me tell you why I chose graphic novels this month instead of a full novel. You'll see I have a lot of novels. This gap in my bookshelf right now is a novel I'm currently reading called A Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Um, and I'm not finished with that yet. I probably will be by later today. But this is what I wanted to show you guys. And I wanted to show you for a couple of reasons. One being that I am someone who I like knowing the whole story. That's sometimes not possible in comics. There's so many comics, and I only have so much money. So I can't get all of it. And like continuity changes based on what storylines you're reading. Like this covers what I dub, but I don't know if it actually is the name. The Heartless Saga of Nightwing, where there's this villain who is going around and cutting out people's hearts because he needs people's hearts to survive, really, and he's like a psychopath because of course he is, and like great. Heartless is Nightwing's antithesis, right? Dick Grayson's antithesis. He uses his billionaire status, his background of like suffering, which he enjoyed because he's a psychopath, because of course he is, and he uses all the power that he has accrued in his life to perpetuate more and more suffering, whereas Dick Grayson uses all of the tragedy in his life and all of the power that he has found in his life to propagate more hope. I keep saying propagate. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's perpetuate. But anyway, he perpetuates more hope. And that's why he's my favorite superhero. He wants Dick Grayson's heart because Dick Grayson inherited money from Alfred. Yes, Alfred is dead in this, and it's very sad, and we try not to think about it because we love Alfred so much. My vacuum cleaner is actually named Alfred, but that's beside the point. The main point is he inherits his money, and instead of like doing bad billionaire things with it, he uses it to build Haven in Bloodhaven, which is a safe space for people who are less fortunate, for children especially, in a city that is very corrupt and gives Gotham a run for its money, And Heartless, wants Dick Grayson to succeed only so that his downfall is that much more painful around Bloodhaven citizens. Like, he wants the suffering to be as severe as it can be, and that is kind of what this whole story is upside down story no, now it's upside down. Jesus, I can't read. That's what this whole story um is, and she a thick story, but very fast to read because they're graphic novels. I know with comics, because I am a girl, I am a woman, I do have X chromosomes, can be super gatekeepy, and a lot of the time people don't really like when women creep into these spaces. Um or like, oh, you're not a real fan if you don't do this, if you're not familiar with New 52, if you're not familiar with Golden Age, if you're not. And I am not saying I know everything that happens in the DC universe. For fuck's sake, I don't know everything that happens in this universe. Like, I barely know what happens inside my apartment. And everyone is allowed to like the things that they like without being experts at it. I know that's very hard to understand. It's very hard for me to understand personally because I'm such a perfectionist. And I didn't really want to read these comics. Not because I had something against Nightwing. I love Nightwing. I always loved Nightwing. I always loved Dick Grayson. But because just I like knowing the whole story, because I like knowing how characters got to certain points. I like knowing why they make the choices that they do. And with comics, that's not always possible because there are so many storylines, and you just don't have the capacity to buy all the comics and read all of the comics. Like, there's no time. I'm sorry. I have a job. I have a couple of them actually. And I can only do so much. And so this is what I've read. Okay? And the Wayne Family Adventures, because that was fun and free on Webtoon. Given the climate of the world in general, it can be really easy to get swept up in the nihilism and hopelessness of it all. And something that I really enjoy about Nightwing and Dick Grayson's character is, no matter how difficult things get, no matter how terrible things happen to this man all of the time, like all of the time, terrible things. He has every excuse to be a horrible person. Terrible things happen in the world. He lives in a city that rivals Gotham in terms of crime and corruption. And he chose that city because he wants to help that city. That is his home. His city is his home, and he wants to make home better, okay? Instead of making it worse, even though there are so many reasons why he could make it worse, and it's like understandable, but he doesn't do that because that's not who he is. And the thing about him is that he is not a superpowered person. He's not a metahuman. He is just a guy. Please don't hit him with your car. Okay? He's just a guy. He's just a man. He's a little Romani acrobat whose parents died in front of him, and his whole thing is to make sure that everybody is okay. The man is the eldest daughter. He's an eldest daughter, okay? He doesn't know how to not fix things, to the point where when Blockbuster orders a hit on him, not Nightwing, on Dick Grayson, this man still goes out on stages and news outlets and keeps going because hope is important. To do with that? What am I supposed to do with that? He has human fears, normal human fears. He was afraid of heights as a kid, and now he leaps off of buildings. Okay, that is objectively insane, but he does it because it's he wants to help. And the powerful thing about him is the fact that he wants to help and he does his best. It's not that he can win every battle. It's not He's not super fast. He's not super strong. You know, his conflicts are so human. You know, like he isn't even like he wouldn't have even been a billionaire had it not been for Alfred being like, you know what to do with this money. Like he lives in an apartment with barely any furniture from what I could tell. I don't think he has a headboard. Okay. I'm yeah. And then his apartment burned down. Well, actually, it exploded because of the aforementioned hit that Blockbuster put on him. His apartment exploded. I would be so stressed. And like I had to move and this has been very stressful. You know, can't even I can't even. I wouldn't wanna. You know, like I wouldn't wanna. And he still goes out and he still does patrol and he still does his best. And sometimes you need to give yourself that hope. Where hope can be more like self-assurance that you are doing your best and that is all that you can do. And you might not win every battle, but that's okay. You being yourself is winning the war. That's really all this is, you know? And I think that's a universal story, regardless of gender, regardless of whether you're an expert, whether you've read it all, whether you're a collector, you know, like the whole theme is anyone can make a difference even without superpowers. It's the fact that you go out and try that matters. And that's why I wanted to talk about Nightwing. And I hope that you guys branch out to and I hope you guys feel safe enough to branch out into uncharted territory when it comes to reading. Because reading comes in many forms. It can come as audiobooks, it can come as novels, it could come as graphic novels and comics, you know, and all of that is valid and it's all still reading and the important part is not how the words come to you, but the story that they present. And this has a really great story, guys. So, and he's hot. So if you wanna if you wanna talk Nightwing, just DM me or leave a comment down below and subscribe and turn your notifications on so you know when we post our future videos. And oh, I don't know, like the video so that we can keep going. And yeah, go out there and do your best. And I will see you next month probably. And bye.
I'm reading the new Hunger Games. I'm only on chapter 3, and what I thought was gonna happen which was what my mind imagined would be the worst possible outcome, but no, I was wrong. It is way worse, and I'm only on chapter 3. I have not felt this level of devastation since I was 12, and Rue died. So if that's not the best intro to a book you've ever heard, I don't know what to tell ya. Welcome back, guys, to this month's book club, where we are reading Sunrise on the Reaping. So, if you clicked on this video, I am going to assume you have some knowledge, if not the same amount of love and obsession, with the original Hunger Games trilogy. That being said, there are going to be some spoilers. If you can spoil a book in which you already know the ending if you read the previous 3 books. I digress. So, Sunrise on the Reaping is no other than Haymitch's story in his games. And believe it or not, this may be a controversial thing to say. This might take the crown of my favorite Hunger Games book yet, which is currently Catching Fire, which I don't feel like is that uncommon of a take. But oh my god, listen, Suzanne Collins, if you are watching this and if you are out there, you broke my heart when I was 12, and apparently 12 years later, you broke my heart again at 24. So thank you for that. But also, can we not get more and more heartbreaking and devastating in the next book? Because I don't know if I can handle that. I think I maybe just got over Rue's death maybe last month. And this might take me a solid 5 years in a session in therapy every 2 days to get over the events in this one. But in all seriousness, this book is incredible. Devastating, heartbreaking, genuinely, utterly, flabbergastingly, if that's a word, destruction and destroys your heart. There's really no easy way to put that. This is not a happy-go-lucky read. No. This is the book you read when you need to be so sad that your eyes can't even produce tears because the events in this book are so awful and horrific that your brain doesn't even have time to catch up to produce tears out of your tear ducts. But I mean that in a good way. I don't know if I'm selling this book as well as I need to. But those of you who have read the original trilogy know where I'm going with this. The details in this book and how they relate to the rest of the 3 books. I mean, come on. I had to put this book down and close it and just sit in silence and mourn for this fictional character at least 4 to 5 times a chapter, probably, because as like someone who holds a theater degree in character analyzation is in my blood, it's ingrained in my mind, and I have studied how to take a section of text and go beyond that text to imagine how that character would feel. So this entire book was like one big character study for me, and one of the things that really did it for me was in this book they mention one of the tributes, Maisley Donner, who is one of the girls who are reaped for District 12. And if you don't know Haymitch's story, which is only briefly mentioned in the original trilogy, he was the victor of the first quarter quell, I think. I might be a little wrong with the details. Quarter quell happens every 25 years. They go big for it. And his games, they decided that the big twist in this year's quarter quell was that they were going to reap twice as many children as they do on any normal year. So that means the 24 tributes went up to 48. So 2 girls, 2 boys for every district. And Maisley Donner was one of the ones who were reaped for that year's Quarter Quell. And originally, I didn't think she was going to be a likable character. It turns out she was my favorite character. I adored her, and I understand the movie's already cast, but like, if you want to do a remake, keep me in mind. I really do think I could do her justice. I'm just kidding. But she is a lover of jewelry, always has bling on her. And in Haymitch's internal monologue, he mentions how Maisley was given a pin, a gold pin with, you guessed it, a mockingjay. And how she hated this pin, didn't think it was cute or pretty, and threw it in a drawer, and it was never seen again. So at this moment, I had to close the book because my mind immediately thought, how devastated and confused and possibly downright angry I would be if I was Haymitch and I get introduced to my new 2 tributes of the year, Katniss and Peeta, and on Katniss's collar, she's wearing this mockingjay pin that belonged to somebody who you'll learn throughout the book that completely changed his life. Imagine his surprise that he gets to see that pin again, let alone pinned to one of his tributes. If that is not the most heartbreaking connection and series of dots being connected, I don't know what is. And there are several other moments and instances like that in this book where if you are a fan, you had to close the book and debrief. I hate to keep bringing it back to, you know, my theater degree and what I studied, but as someone who studied plays and literature and characters most of all, these details, I mean, earth-shattering, and as well as just overwhelmingly emotional and melancholy, but in the best way, like a sad Taylor Swift song, you know. Is it gonna make you cry? 100%. Are you gonna have it on repeat more than once? Yes. But that being said, some of the highlights of this book was just the initial understanding that you get to learn about this character who was always one of my favorites in the original trilogy, but we didn't know why he was the way that he was beyond that something horrific happened in his games. And not to mention, you find out, and it's never said, but it's implied, that Haymitch's best friend is actually Katniss's dad. So that adds to another layer of Haymitch's anger and devastation, because here he is seeing this girl who's wearing a pin that belonged to his best ally in his games that he couldn't save. And not only is she wearing the pin, but the girl who is wearing the pin is the daughter of his best friend. Point blank, that makes the original trilogy just that much more powerful, because the internal turmoil you would feel as Haymitch, and not to mention hopelessness, because here you are witnessing another repeat of events. You've got this girl wearing the pin of the girl you wished you could save within the games. And not only that, the girl is the daughter of your ex-best friend. And you are going to send her to slaughter knowing there is nothing you can do about it. That alone brings so much depth to this character, and that's only, 3 chapters in to this book? So if you are a fan of diving deep and understanding a character's why, how, and psyche, essentially, not only will you love this book, but you're gonna want to go and reread the other three. And there's just so many characters that we interact with in the original trilogy that are also mentioned in here, and I'm not going to go into any more spoilers, that bring so much more understanding to what happens and what I feel in Catching Fire. It kind of completely shifts the way you'll view that book. But with that, I will see you guys next month for our other book club. Feel free, if you liked this style of video, to go check out Nina and Lexi's. They chose different books. They have different styles. If you watched if you watched Lexi's first video, you'll see like a little cut in about how I am primarily the romance reader, and that's kind of my vibe, that's where I am. Nina loves all things fantasy and contemporary literature. And then you've got Lexi, who is your nonfiction queen and loves contemporary fiction and all that jazz. So if that sounds like something you would like to watch, feel free to click on our channel and you'll find more videos like that. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next month. Bye.
Hi guys! Welcome back to Now What a Book Club. This month I read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. Well, actually, as of this moment, I have not yet read it, but I will be reading it starting about right now. I have the winning book this month, obviously. I mean, like, I do every month, but this one really is it. I was gifted this by a friend. I know, I feel like last month I was gifted it by a friend as well, but I always love when people recommend me things. It just feels so personal. Like giving someone a book just feels like you're giving someone like a piece of your soul a little. Especially books that like really resonate with you. So this was a book that my friend, good college friend, gave me, and she was saying like, it changed my life. Like, this is the best book I've ever read. And I was like, okay, well, with that review, I have to read it. And honestly, it's a chunker. So it did take me a decent amount of time, and it was dense as well, I will say. There was a lot going on throughout the entire book, really. And the interesting thing that I found was that everything that she describes throughout the story, because this book is really about describing Francie's growing up. Like, it's about describing her life, and she picked really mundane moments at times that normally I feel like would be passed over in other stories, other fiction that I've read. So it was interesting, and I didn't mind the mundaneness because it felt personal. It felt like I was sitting at the table with the family, you know what I mean? And the family in the book, it's Katie and Johnny, who are the parents, and then the younger brother Neely, and Francie, who's in the middle. And honestly, it was such a touching family dynamic. I have to be honest, like, they all loved one another so dearly. And throughout the book, they love one another very fiercely, and they protect each other, and it's very much like a family unit, I guess. And that was, you know, another refreshing thing to see, you know, that even though things weren't always okay, even though, you know, Francie and Neely and the family didn't necessarily grow up with the most money in the world, they were happy. They were happy with what they had. And especially in the beginning of the book. So we start the book really at Francie's adolescence, and we're told, you know, the whole story really through her eyes, except for a couple of, you know, chapters here and there where we get some other people's like point of view, which I also found really interesting. I liked how every once in a while I would like peer into somebody else's brain, and that really helped me understand their motives in other scenes as well. Even when I couldn't, you know, understand their thoughts or see their thoughts, I could understand their motivations a little bit better. And we're really told the story through Francie's eyes. So in that sense, we're growing up with her, which I found really interesting. This whole story takes place in like the early 1900s, turn of the century, you know, and one of my favorite quotes actually from this that I wanted to start with was, she was made of more too. I'm gonna be honest, I'm reading this off my iPad and not the book. But she was made up of more too. She was the book she read in the library. She was the flower in the brown bowl. Part of her life was made from the tree growing rankily in the yard. She was the bitter quarrel she had with her brother whom she loved dearly. She was Katie's secret, despairing weeping. She was the shame of her father stumbling home drunk. She was all of these things and of something more. It was what God, or whatever his equivalent, put into each soul that is given life. The one different thing, such as that which made no two fingerprints on the face of the earth alike. So that's what I'm saying, is like, it was heavy hitter after heavy hitter. Like, she did not slow down. She did not wait for us to, like, you know, have our emotions in check. She just kept going. And that's how life is, you know? Okay, so I just got to a quote that I have to show you. Sometimes I think it's better to suffer bitter unhappiness and to fight and to scream out and to even suffer that terrible pain than to just be safe. At least she knows she's living. Come on. Are you kidding me? We start off with actually Francie a little bit older than we go back to in certain parts of the book. She's 8 or 9, somewhere around there. They didn't really specify necessarily, but she's old enough to read. And that was a really important part of the first couple of chapters, is that she was able to read and she loved to read. She craved knowledge, even to the point where she was willing to bend the truth to get into a more prestigious institution for her growing up, like her kindergarten through 8th grade years. And honestly, she said, because we know throughout the book that she's kind of a lonely child. She doesn't have any friends really, and this is something that continues like throughout the story. She doesn't have any real close, you know, girlfriends or anything like that. So when she learns how to read, it gave her something she didn't have before, and she was able to use her imagination to create something for herself instead of feeling bad that she, you know, wasn't invited, wasn't involved. And it said, from that time on, the world was hers for the reading. She would never be lonely again. Honestly, the really great part about this that I found, and again going back to like this family unit, was that her father, Johnny, was just like on it. She was like, I want to do this, and he said, yes, absolutely, I support you, and was 100% in. And that was just the way that the family seemed to work, was that they always gave their 100% for one another. And honestly, we see these moments in time for her. We're described what it's like to walk through the spice shop down the street, and how all of the teas and the coffees and the spices like made her think about the world as a little kid made her see the world in different ways, and how we're always coming back to that spirit of wonder about the world. And I find it, you know, kind of inspiring that Francie doesn't necessarily lose that wonder about the world. In the beginning of the story, we're, you know, really collecting trash for money, you know, situation. Their mom cleans, their dad is a singer at a local restaurant, and they make enough money to get by, but they don't necessarily always make enough to get by. You know what I mean? Francie watches as this little girl across the street starts banging out the erasers, the dry erase board erasers, not the dry erase board, the chalkboard erasers. This was the early 1900s. What am I doing? But we see her watching as the little girl taps out the erasers. And she immediately goes, when I go to school, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be the one that takes out the erasers. And this girl just starts like yelling at her across the street and calling her poor and saying that she's never gonna be able to do this. And it was like horrible. And she started crying and ran home, obviously. And like we get to see, you know, this kind of shitty memory, but then we see it later from a different viewpoint. We go back to, you know, when she is in school. Does she wind up able to break out the erasers? We'll see. You gotta read to find out. I want you guys to read this so bad because really, truly, like, it was a great book. And it's now what appropriate because everything she does, I feel like the chapters flowed so smoothly. Like there was never really a breakup in what was going on. There were these jarring moments where Francie really has to decide, and at some points things are decided for her as well as to what path she's going to be taking. And even though her decision would always be to take the path of knowledge and education, that wasn't always something that was given to her as an option. You know, this wasn't a time where women had a lot of autonomy over their lives, and especially children didn't have a lot of autonomy over their lives. I mean, they talk about it in the book about how this was a time before, you know, child psychology was a thing. You know, this was a time where children were seen and not heard, you know? And it gets to a point where when Francie is a teenager, she winds up having to not go to high school, even though she was promised to be able to go to high school. And the reasoning that Katie gives, the mom, is that her brother will not do it if he doesn't have to, but Francie will do whatever it takes to get an education. So Katie decides to help Neely and allow Neely to go to high school and not Francie. Francie has to go to work to support the family. And honestly, this line of thought really did kind of bother me because if one person wants it, I feel like the person that wants it more should get it, but I understand where she's coming from because honestly, Francie does find a way. She finds a way to take college classes while she's working, and even though it's difficult, she knows that it's going to be worth it, and knows that she wants to know everything there is, everything there can be. The thing that I really was impressed by as well is that at the end of the book, and I don't want to give anything away, but at the end of the book, their circumstances change. Things about their circumstances and their lives change drastically. And the thing that I found most inspiring was that they don't look back at their time in, you know, a Brooklyn tenement railroad apartment. They don't look back on that time as a sad time or a bad experience. They look back on it with so much love and joy. And one of the quotes that hit me the most, I think this was the one that I picked out almost immediately, was Francie says, "She'll never have the hard times we had, will she?" And Neely says, "No, and she'll never have the fun we had either." I just felt like that really sums up the story, and I left this book feeling inspired and feeling like I should be grateful for everything that I have, that I live in luxury that hasn't always existed, and that I should be thankful for that. And I submit A Tree Grows in Brooklyn for this month's Now What a Book Club winner. It's gonna take you a second to get through, but it's worth it. I promise.
I hope you guys pick it up. I hope I win this month. I think I should. And we will talk soon. Bye, guys.